After 8 months of leading the British monarchy following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth, King Charles III will have his official coronation, which is a commemorative crowning, this weekend. Erin Vanderhoof, staff writer for Vanity Fair and the co-host of the podcast Dynasty, is here to talk to me about what to expect. Erin, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
As this family continues to make headlines, some of the tea that everybody's talking about is who will and won't be at the coronation. What do we know about who will be there and who won't be there? And do you think that that will be fodder for more conversation?
The last coronation that happened was 8,000 different people were invited, and now it's down to 2,000. So necessarily there were going to have to be some cuts to the invite list. Prince Harry has been estranged from the family, and he and his wife Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, they were both invited. Meghan will be staying at home. But one thing that was a bit of a surprise, but I think says a lot about the direction that Charles and his reign want to go in, is that a lot of the peers, so his extended family in some cases, the people with titles, like I said, the dukes, the duchesses, aristocracy, didn't get an invite. Instead, a lot of charity workers and people who supported the nation through the pandemic, people who got awards for their charity work, are going to be invited to the coronation instead of, a long list of the various like upper level government people and a long list of, hereditary aristocrats.
What does this flux and change in the list of invitees sort of signal or tell us about the direction that the British monarchy is going in and how the world perspective informs that?
Well, I mean, over the last 100 years and even over the last 70 years, the idea of a hereditary monarchy has gotten way stranger to, increasingly democratized countries. But at the same time, as it becomes more and more unusual, I think it becomes one of those things that Britain is holding on to because it is unique. Even the other European monarchies don't do coronation ceremonies like this. Britain is like the last place where this 1,000-year-old ceremony has remained pretty much the same. And there are just so many different reasons that people have kind of come to love the British monarchy. For on the one hand, even people who maybe philosophically would have been opposed to it really found a lot of great things to say about the late Queen Elizabeth. And, as long as they're seen as people who are adding some value to Britain, I think that it's going to be a lot harder to see that going away.
What are the opposing sides of this in terms of who's excited about a coronation and who has, very little to say or strong opinions about why it shouldn't be a thing?
Recent polling has indicated that about a third of people are very excited for the coronation, and a third of people are just sort of like, who cares? And we will see some protests and things like that. But I think what's the most telling is that instead of it just being this one ceremony, they're keeping the ceremony pretty short this time. It's just 60 minutes. Queen Elizabeth the First in the 16th century had 3 hours. But we're seeing a weekend of events that are sort of trying to make this a bit more culturally British, a little bit more pop culture, a bit more fun. So you're getting big coronation lunches, and the palace has recommended that people make a coronation quiche, which is a broad bean and spinach quiche. They actually had Prue Leith of the Great British Bake Off. She got a chance to try it. We're seeing an attempt to make it more than just about the government and the Church of England and Charles as a person, but more about a moment of unity and celebration about all of the things that make the country distinctive and make being a British person like a point of pride.
What is the main challenge that King Charles III has been dealing with and will deal with?
The last 8 months have seen a lot of upheaval in the British economy, in British politics. And, for Charles, the biggest challenge that he's been dealing with is kind of serving as counter programming for that. As the head of state, he does have a role to play with the government, but he doesn't have a political role at all. And so when things are going on in Parliament, when people are facing things like a cost of living crisis, there isn't much he can do per se, but his role of being there, meeting with diplomats, that's the big challenge. And as these problems in the British economy and in British politics continue, a lot of his success as a monarch is going to depend on things that have almost nothing to do with him.
a lot of people see these kinds of events as just a lot of pomp and circumstance. Is this a way of him making this ceremony his own?
The ceremony itself kind of exists as part of, solidifying the king's role as the head of state, as as a CEO of the monarchy, and as, a head of a family. And so we're seeing him make homages to all of those different things throughout the ceremony. He's the head of the Church of England, but he wants his role to also be a person who's promoting faith of all faiths. And so I think one way you're going to see that in the ceremony, that there is really more sacred elements than usual are going into the ceremony. For example, the anointing oil. So it's not coming from civets or whales this time as it has in the past. It's coming from hand-pressed olive oil that's been blessed in Jerusalem to be brought back here.
Why do approval ratings matter in a role that doesn't have any political power? What's at stake?
Because the monarchy is so aligned with, and I feel like it's hard to say this to Americans. I feel like Americans don't always get this, but the monarchy is so aligned with the history of democracy in Britain that there's a sense that the monarchy is serving at the pleasure of British people, and that if they didn't want it anymore, that's when they could get rid of it. But they feel like they want to keep proving that they're giving value to the country.
Erin Vanderhoof, staff writer for Vanity Fair and the co-host of Dynasty podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nicole Ellis.